Washington State is a land of dense forests, misty mountains, and hidden cabins tucked away from the world. By day, these cabins are quiet retreats for hikers and travelers seeking solitude. By night, the forests awaken. Whispers drift between the trees. Footsteps echo across creaking floors. Cold shadows stretch across walls. The wind carries voices from cabins long abandoned. These are not ordinary woods. They are haunted forests, where spirits linger in the cabins, watching, waiting. Tonight, we will venture into 20 haunted forest cabins in Washington. Some are abandoned, some still standing, yet all hold secrets that chill the soul. Greetings, my friend. Thank you for joining me tonight as we explore the most haunted forest cabins in Washington. Each cabin has a story. Some are of grief and tragedy. Some are of betrayal and revenge. Some are simply whispers of the past, replaying endlessly among the trees. Imagine walking up to a lonely cabin at dusk. The forest surrounds you in darkness. The wind rustles through the branches, carrying a strange, almost human sigh. The door creaks open on its own. You step inside. A chill runs down your spine. Some hauntings are subtle. A door that opens or closes by itself. Some hauntings are terrifying. Figures appearing at the corner of your vision. Whispers echoing from the walls. And sometimes, you feel a presence brushing against your shoulder, yet no one is there. Now I have a question for you. If you were alone in a forest cabin at night and felt a cold, unseen presence, would you confront it to see who it is? Or would you flee into the dark forest hoping to escape? I want to know how brave you would be if the spirits of Washington's haunted forest cabins reached for you tonight. Blackwood Cabin sits at the edge of a dense forest, surrounded by towering pines and the quiet hush of nature. The wooden structure is weathered, its dark timbers blending almost seamlessly with the shadows of the trees. But when night falls, the atmosphere changes, and the forest takes on a heavier, more watchful presence. Travelers who pass by often report a figure appearing in the cabin window. It is a dark silhouette, motionless, as if observing the world outside. The figure does not move like a living person, but there is an unmistakable sense of awareness, a presence that watches and waits in silence. The experience is sudden and fleeting, yet it leaves a lasting impression on those who witness it. The shadow appears most clearly when the moon is high, casting silver light across the clearing. The cabina's window frames the dark figure, and from a distance it seems almost human. Some describe the sensation of being stared at, a subtle pressure in the chest, a tingling along the spine. The effect is more than visual, it is a presence that communicates through emotion and atmosphere rather than words or gestures. Curiosity drives many to approach the cabin, hoping for a closer look. Yet as soon as anyone steps onto the path or nears the window, the shadow vanishes. It retreats silently, slipping into the forest beyond, leaving the cabin and clearing empty. The air feels colder, the forest quieter, as though it has absorbed the figure back into its depths. Witnesses are left with a mixture of awe and unease, carrying the memory of a presence they cannot fully explain. The cabin itself is simple, with a single story and a small porch facing the clearing. Its windows, once clean, have become streaked with age and time. But they do not obstruct the sight of the shadow. Even when the cabin is empty, the feeling of being observed lingers. A subtle awareness that the forest and the building are connected to something unseen. Locals tell stories of the shadow's origin, though none can agree on its truth. Some suggest it is the spirit of a former occupant, forever watching the land they loved. Others believe it is a guardian of the forest, a presence that monitors those who enter and leaves no evidence behind. Regardless of its origin, the phenomenon has become part of the lore of Blackwood Cabin, drawing travelers who seek both mystery and the thrill of the unexplained. Visitors describe their encounters with striking detail. The shadow does not move like a human. Yet its posture conveys awareness. It can be seen standing at the window. Sometimes peering downward. Other times facing the forest. It never speaks, never gestures. Yet there is a compelling presence. As if it exists just outside the boundary of the known world. The forest surrounding the cabin amplifies the feeling of isolation. The cabine's wooden walls creak in the night. The wind whispers through the branches, creating a subtle, shifting backdrop to the mysterious figure. In this setting, the shadow seems almost natural. A part of the night itself, yet distinctly separate from the living world. Some visitors attempt to capture the figure on camera, but photographs rarely show more than darkness and vague shapes. The shadow seems to resist being fully recorded, appearing clearly only to the eyes of those present. This fleeting visibility adds to the legend, reinforcing the sense that the shadow exists in a liminal space, caught between the world of the living and something beyond. The experience leaves a lasting impression. Even after leaving the clearing, travelers often feel the weight of being observed. A subtle unease that lingers in quiet moments. Stories are shared around campfires, recounted to friends, and remembered in solitary reflection. Each encounter strengthens the aura of Blackwood Cabin, a place where the forest and a mysterious presence meet in the quiet of night. Despite the fear it may evoke, the shadow is not considered hostile. It does not pursue or threaten, but exists as a silent witness. Those who encounter it report a sense of solemnity, as if the figure acknowledges their presence. And then returns to its watch, retreating into the darkness where it belongs. Blackwood Cabin and its shadow remain a destination for those drawn to the unknown. The interplay of light and darkness, forest and cabin, creates a setting that is both beautiful and unsettling. Witnessing the shadow is a reminder that some places hold secrets that cannot be fully explained, and some presences exist just beyond the reach of understanding. In the end, the shadow in the window is part of the story of Blackwood Cabin. It is a testament to the power of place, the weight of history, and the mysteries that linger in the quiet corners of the natural world. Those who witness it carry a piece of that mystery with them. An experience that lingers long after the forest has returned to silence. The cabin stands quietly as night deepens. The wind moves through the trees, and the clearing lies still. For those who pass by, the possibility of seeing the shadow again is ever present. Blackwood Cabin waits, its window dark. Its presence subtle, and the forest continues to guard the secrets of a figure that watches, unseen, and vanishes when approached. Cedar Creek Cabin sits alone among dense pines, the trees whispering as the wind moves through their branches. The wooden structure is worn and weathered, a remnant of a time long past, its windows clouded with age and its doors sagging on rusted hinges. Visitors approaching the cabin often remark on the silence surrounding it, a stillness that feels almost unnatural, as though the forest itself holds its breath. As dusk settles, the air grows colder, and a soft sound begins to drift from within the cabin. At first, it is barely noticeable, like the rustle of leaves or a distant sigh, but it grows clearer with each passing moment. It is the unmistakable sound of a woman crying, her sobs soft and broken, echoing faintly against the wooden walls. Those who hear the cries are drawn to the cabin, compelled to see the source. Yet when the door is pushed open, the interior appears empty. Shadows stretch across the rough floorboards, and dust motes float in the fading light. But no one is there. The sobbing continues, seeming to emanate from the very walls themselves, surrounding visitors from all sides. Inside, the cabin is simple and sparse, with a few pieces of old furniture covered in a thin layer of dust. The fireplace is cold, the hearth ashen. The scent of pine mingles with the lingering chill. The cries seem to shift as visitors move through the space, following them from room to room, impossible to locate. It is as if the cabin itself is alive, carrying the sorrow of a woman who remains unseen, yet present in every corner. Visitors report a sense of heaviness in the air, an emotional weight that presses on the chest. Some feel their own tears welling, even though they do not understand why. The sobs vary in intensity, sometimes quiet and almost intimate, other times loud and piercing, filling the cabin with a haunting resonance. It is as though the woman's grief is eternal, her sorrow bound to the cabin and the surrounding woods. Those who linger often describe small, inexplicable occurrences. A rocking chair moves slightly as though someone has just stood. The creak of floorboards echoes without a cause. And cold drafts sweep through the rooms despite closed windows. Shadows appear and vanish at the edge of vision. And a feeling of being watched settles over visitors. Every sound and movement reinforces the presence of the crying woman, though she remains just beyond reach. Local lore speaks of a woman who once lived in the cabin. Her life marked by hardship and loss. She is said to have spent her days tending to the forest, and her nights waiting for someone who never returned. Her grief became a part of the cabin, the energy of her sorrow lingering long after she was gone. Travelers and explorers tell similar stories, noting that those who respect the cabina's stillness and approach with care experience the cries more vividly than those who enter carelessly. As night falls, the sobbing seems to grow stronger, weaving through the shadows and echoing among the surrounding trees. The wind carrying the sound across the creek, drawing the attention of those nearby. Lights from flashlights illuminate the interior in fleeting moments, revealing empty spaces, yet the sound persists. The crying seems to respond to the presence of living beings, louder when footsteps approach and quieter when visitors retreat. Some claim that the woman is attempting to communicate, that her grief is a message from the past. The cries are not threatening, but mournful. A lament that reminds visitors of the fragility of life, and the weight of unresolved sorrow. Those who leave the cabin often speak of a lingering feeling, an emotional residue that follows them long after the sobs have faded. As though a part of the woman's anguish has attached itself to their awareness. Despite the fear it can inspire, Cedar Creek Cabin also draws curiosity and fascination. Photographers, hikers, and storytellers seek it out, hoping to witness the cries firsthand or to capture the essence of its haunting atmosphere. Yet even with careful observation, the woman remains unseen. The sobs cannot be pinpointed, the source cannot be touched, and the visitor leaves with only the memory of her presence, haunting yet compelling. The crying woman of Cedar Creek Cabin remains a spectral reminder of loss, grief, and the unquiet spirits that linger in places long abandoned. Her sorrow is preserved in the walls, the floors, and the air that moves through the forest, waiting for those who enter to feel the depth of her lament. Each visitor carries a piece of that emotion, a silent connection to the past, a witness to a presence that cannot be fully understood yet cannot be ignored. Even after the cabin is left behind, the memory of the sobbing woman endures. Travelers recount the sound to others, passing on the story that blends history, legend, and personal experience. Cedar Creek Cabin is not merely a structure of wood and stone, but a vessel of enduring grief. A place where the invisible cries continue, compelling all who encounter it to pause, listen, and acknowledge the restless spirit within. The cabin, set against the backdrop of the forest and creek, becomes more than a location. It is the weight of unseen tears, the echo of a life once lived, and the enduring presence of a woman. The enduring presence of a woman whose sorrow transcends time. Visitors leave with an understanding that some places hold emotions. And in Cedar Creek Cabin, the crying woman remains forever part of the landscape, watching, mourning, and waiting. Pine Hollow Cabin sits deep in the forest, surrounded by towering pines. By day, the sun filters through the branches, casting dappled shadows on the wooden exterior. But as evening falls, the forest closes in, and the cabin seems to awaken in ways the eye cannot see. Visitors who enter report an immediate sense of presence, a subtle awareness that they are not entirely alone. The air feels heavier, and a stillness settles in that makes every sound more pronounced. It begins softly at first, a faint tap along the wooden floorboards. Those unfamiliar with the cabin might think it is the wind, or the settling of the old structure. Yet the sound persists and grows, deliberate and rhythmic, like footsteps pacing from room to room. The footsteps echo through the cabin in a way that defies explanation. They move across the floor, from the living area to the hallway, then pause, only to begin again in another direction. Guests have recounted feeling the hairs on the back of their neck stand up, sensing the unseen presence circling, studying, or perhaps waiting. The cabin itself seems to amplify the phenomenon. The walls, made of aged timber, carry the sound in a haunting clarity. Even the softest step becomes a low rumble in the silence. As if the building itself participates in the spectral pacing. Shadows lengthen and shift in the corners of vision. But when eyes turn, they find nothing more than empty rooms. It is a place where perception and reality blur. And the ordinary rules of space and sound no longer apply. The pattern of the footsteps is often described as purposeful. They do not wander randomly but follow a path, as though tracing invisible lines along the cabina's interior. Some visitors have felt a compulsion to follow the sound, to see who or what moves unseen. When they attempt to do so, the footsteps often change direction, retreating or circling, as if aware of observation. This interaction creates a tense anticipation, a quiet engagement with something just beyond reach. Night in Pine Hollow Cabin deepens the experience. The forest outside seems to hold its breath, the rustle of leaves muffled, as the footsteps continue, pacing in a steady, unrelenting rhythm. Every creak of the floor, every subtle shift in air feels magnified, pulling the visitor into an acute awareness of the unseen presence. Some who have stayed in the cabin report additional phenomena accompanying the phantom steps. Doors may shift slightly, items may be found moved from one location to another. And an inexplicable chill lingers in certain rooms. These occurrences are subtle, never violent. But they reinforce the sense that the cabin is alive with a history that refuses to remain silent. The footsteps act as a reminder of lives once lived within these walls. The echoes of daily routines frozen and replayed through spectral memory. The origin of the phenomenon remains a mystery. Some speculate that Pine Hollow Cabin carries residual energy from its past occupants, an imprint of moments lived in solitude or tension. Others suggest a more active presence, a spirit that continues its nightly pacing as if bound to the structure. Regardless of explanation, the effect on those who witness it is undeniable. The sound of approaching steps in an empty room creates a profound tension, a blend of curiosity and apprehension that lingers long after the footsteps fade. The cabina's layout seems to influence the experience. High ceilings allow the echoes to expand, filling rooms with an uncanny resonance. Each area of the cabin has its own character. The living space is the most active, while the bedrooms and kitchen tend to register softer, more distant movements. The pattern suggests intention, as if the footsteps follow a protocol understood only by the presence itself. Guests often describe a sense of timing, that the pacing occurs in intervals rather than continuously. The pacing occurs in intervals rather than continuously. There may be long stretches of silence, broken suddenly by a series of quick steps, then a pause. Broken suddenly by a series of quick steps, then a pause. Then a pause. The effect is immersive, drawing the observer into a subtle dialogue with the unseen. Drawing the observer into a subtle dialogue with the unseen. The observer is in a subtle dialogue with the unseen. The unseen is responding to the environment or to the visitor's attention. The unseen is responding to the environment or to the visitor's attention. The effect is immersive, drawing the observer into a subtle dialogue with the unseen. This unpredictability enhances the feeling of being in the presence of something sentient. The presence is sentient, responding to the environment or to the visitor's attention. The effect is immersive, drawing the observer into a subtle dialogue with the unseen. Drawing the observer into a subtle dialogue with the unseen. The observer is in a subtle dialogue with the unseen. The unseen is responding to the environment or to the visitor's attention. The effect is immersive, drawing the observer into a subtle dialogue with the unseen. The unseen presence is vast and unyielding. It fills the entire space. The guests are tiny and insignificant. The cold, cosmic color palette is a deep blue with purple undertones. The mood is one of impending doom and madness. The guests are frozen in time. The atmosphere is one of eerie, unsettling stillness. The guests are trapped in a never-ending nightmare. The sense of cosmic horror is overwhelming. The guests are consumed by an otherworldly presence. The atmosphere is one of crushing despair. The guests are trapped in an eternal cycle of terror. The sense of cosmic horror is suffocating. The guests are consumed by an eldritch presence. The atmosphere is one of existential dread. The guests are trapped in a realm of madness. The sense of cosmic horror is overwhelming. The guests are consumed by an otherworldly presence. The atmosphere is one of crushing despair. The guests are trapped in an eternal cycle of terror. The sense of cosmic horror is suffocating. The guests are consumed by an eldritch presence. The experience is not frightening in the traditional sense. There is no aggression, no violent manifestation, only the steady, deliberate rhythm of movement. Yet the anticipation of each step, the uncertainty of direction, and the knowledge that no physical being occupies the space, create a persistent tension. Visitors are compelled to listen, to wait, and to wonder, fully aware that the ordinary rules of perception do not apply within these walls. Morning in Pine Hollow Cabin brings relief and clarity. The forest awakens with the sounds of wildlife. And the weight of the night's phenomena recedes. Yet those who have heard the phantom steps carry the memory with them. A vivid impression of sound, space, and presence that cannot be erased. They leave with stories of pacing in empty rooms. Of floors that echo with invisible movement. And of a cabin that holds on to the traces of those who have walked its halls in another time. Pine Hollow Cabin remains a place of mystery and quiet fascination. The footsteps echo not only in the floors and walls but in the minds of those who experience them. Each visit is unique, shaped by observation and expectation, yet all share the same haunting truth. The cabin moves to a rhythm of its own, a phantom cadence that invites, challenges, and leaves an indelible mark on the imagination. To stand within Pine Hollow Cabin is to feel the unseen, to hear the echoes of lives past. And to understand that some presences are defined not by sight but by sound. The phantom steps continue, a spectral rhythm that carries forward into the night. Waiting for the next visitor to witness, to listen, and to wonder. The Misty Pines cabin stands at the edge of a dense forest, shrouded in fog for much of the year. Its wooden walls are weathered, and the surrounding pines sway with a constant whisper, their needles brushing against each other in a rhythm that feels alive. By day, the cabin exudes a rustic charm, inviting weary travelers to rest. By night, however, it takes on a more mysterious presence, as if the shadows themselves are watching. It was years ago when a guest first arrived, a solitary figure seeking refuge from a sudden storm. He checked in quietly, leaving behind only a small bag and a heavy sense of anticipation. The guest requested a room on the upper floor. And as the evening settled in, the fog thickened outside, cloaking the cabin in silence. Visitors who have stayed at the cabin in later years speak of the subtle signs of the vanished guest. Some hear soft footsteps along the upper halls, precise and deliberate, as though someone is moving about unseen. Others report the faint sound of a door opening and closing, always in the dead of night, though the rooms themselves appear empty. The noises are never accompanied by a shadow, yet the rhythm of movement feels undeniable. The floors creak in patterns that do not belong to the living occupants. Guests have described waking to the feeling of being watched, a presence that lingers just beyond perception. Cold drafts snake along the hallways, brushing past with no source, carrying the faint scent of leather and tobacco, as though the vanished guest has left behind a trace of himself. It is a subtle haunting, quiet but persistent, woven into the very fabric of the cabin. Local lore suggests that the guest never truly left the Misty Pines cabin. His disappearance was sudden and inexplicable, leaving behind only a room untouched and a few belongings abandoned in the corner. Investigators at the time found no evidence of foul play, yet those who stayed afterward speak of a sense that he remains, moving unseen through the corridors. Some have even felt a light pressure on their shoulder as they passed the empty room, as if the guest were checking to ensure the cabin remains as he left it. The architecture of the cabin amplifies the eerie presence. Narrow hallways and low ceilings trap sound, and the old wooden floors resonate with even the smallest motion. Shadows cast by the flickering fireplace seem to move independently, and in the dim light, figures appear and vanish at the edges of vision. Guests have recounted glimpsing a figure in the upstairs window, staring out into the fog, only to find the room empty when they investigate. Over time, the legend of the vanished guest has become part of the cabina's identity. Staff and visitors alike respect the stories, leaving the upper rooms undisturbed. Some claim the guest is waiting for someone, perhaps he remains bound to the cabin by something unseen. A lingering fragment of life that refuses to dissipate. The atmosphere within the cabin is unlike any other lodging. The air feels thicker, carrying a sense of anticipation that is almost tangible. The fog outside seems to respond to the presence within, curling around the windows and doors in patterns that mirror the quiet footsteps heard by guests. At night, the cabin becomes a place where the living and the lingering meet, where the memory of a vanished guest is as real as the wooden beams overhead. Sightings are rare but persistent. Some have seen a figure walking the halls, only to vanish into the thin air when approached. Others report doors opening and closing gently, footsteps pacing in repetition, and a subtle warmth that passes briefly, as though a living being is present before disappearing again. Each encounter leaves a sense of wonder and unease. A reminder of the cabin's mysterious past. And the stories that survive within its walls. The vanished guest has become a silent companion to those who stay. Guests leave notes describing the experience, recounting the sounds, the fleeting sensations, and the undeniable sense that someone watches over the cabin. Recounting the sounds, the fleeting sensations, and the undeniable sense that someone watches over the cabin. The presence is never threatening, yet it is deeply compelling, an invitation to contemplate the boundary between the living and the unseen. By morning, the fog recedes, and the cabin returns to its rustic daytime appearance. The floors are quiet, the halls empty, and the upper rooms undisturbed. Yet those who stayed through the night carry the memory with them, a story etched into their minds. The Misty Pines cabin holds its secrets close, allowing only glimpses of the vanished guest to those willing to notice. In the end, the cabin is more than wood and stone. The vanished guest remains a part of its soul. Moving through the halls, unseen yet ever present. A reminder that some presences cannot be explained, only experienced. The Misty Pines cabin waits patiently, inviting travelers into its quiet embrace. Offering rest, reflection, and a fleeting brush with something that exists just beyond the edge of perception. Those who leave carry the memory. The soft echo of footsteps. The faint scent of a presence. And the unshakable impression that the vanished guest continues to wander the halls. Forever a part of Misty Pine's cabin. Shadow Lake Cabin sits at the edge of a dense forest, its weathered timbers blending into the surrounding trees. The lake nearby is still and dark, reflecting the night sky with an almost unnatural clarity. But as dusk falls, the atmosphere changes. Shadows stretch longer, the forest grows silent, and a presence stirs among the trees. Visitors and locals alike have reported seeing a figure walking the grounds of the cabin. It is a man, but one unlike any other. His movements are slow, deliberate, and strangely human. He traverses the space between the cabin and the lake, passing trees and stepping carefully over roots and stones, as if the terrain were familiar to him. The first glimpse of the headless figure often comes unexpectedly. A visitor might notice movement in the corner of their eye, or a shape emerging from the mist that rises off the lake at night. There is a weight to the air, a sensation that someone, or something, is there even when the eyes see only darkness. As those who encounter him draw closer, the figure disappears. It is instantaneous, as if he were never there at all. Some have described a faint ripple through the air, a sudden hush. And then the lake and cabin grounds are empty once more. Footprints are never left behind. And no sound accompanies his movements. This fleeting visibility has cemented the figure as a local legend. A haunting that defies explanation yet leaves a lasting impression. The cabin itself seems to resonate with the figure's presence. Its windows, clouded with age and moisture. The wooden porch creaks under the wind, but it is as if the building and the grounds are attuned to his wandering, providing a stage for a performance that is at once eerie and solemn. Stories vary about who the headless man might have been. Some suggest he was a settler who met a tragic end near the lake. Others speak of him as a guardian of the cabin, a spirit bound to the land for reasons unknown, appearing to remind the living that some places hold secrets that cannot be understood. Each tale adds to the mystique, painting a picture of a presence that is more than mere legend. Witnesses describe the figure in detail. He moves with purpose, yet without the urgency of a living man. His arms swing slightly, his legs carry him steadily, and his form maintains an unnatural poise. There is an awareness in his posture, an understanding of the environment he occupies. Observers sense a consciousness behind the figure, yet it remains unreachable. The forest around Shadow Lake Cabin amplifies the haunting. Trees tower overhead, casting long shadows that stretch across the cabin grounds. The lake reflects moonlight in silver streaks, creating a shifting landscape of light and darkness. The wind whispers through the branches, carrying leaves and rustling the undergrowth. In this setting, the headless figure seems at once out of place and perfectly suited to his surroundings, moving seamlessly between the natural and the supernatural. Attempts to capture the figure on film or in photographs rarely succeed. Cameras record only darkness, distorted shapes, or the faintest blur. The headless man remains visible primarily to those present, appearing and vanishing in a way that defies explanation. This ephemeral nature reinforces the sense that he exists between worlds, a being tied to the night, the cabin, and the lake rather than to the material plane of human understanding. Encounters with the figure leave a profound impression. Those who witness him often speak of a lingering unease. A subtle weight in the air that follows them even after leaving the grounds. Conversations around campfires recount the headless man with reverence and caution. Each retelling preserving the sense of mystery and awe that defines the legend. The story spreads not just through words, but through the emotional resonance of the experience. Despite the fear he inspires, the headless figure is not hostile. He does not approach to harm or threaten. His presence is silent and observant, a spectral reminder of past events, of lives once lived, and of the mysteries that linger at the edge of human perception. He wanders alone, bound to the cabin and the lake. Neither seeking nor avoiding the living, simply existing in a rhythm all his own. Shadow Lake Cabin remains a destination for those drawn to the unknown. Visitors come in search of mystery, hoping to glimpse the headless figure. While experiencing the natural beauty of the forest and lake. The interplay of light, shadow, and reflection creates an environment that is both breathtaking and unnerving. A place where the boundaries between the ordinary and the extraordinary blur. In the quiet of night, the headless figure continues his wandering. The lake remains still, the trees stand silently. And the cabin waits at the edge of the forest. For those who pass by, the possibility of seeing him is ever present. A reminder that some presences are bound to the land, moving unseen and disappearing when approached. Leaving only memory and legend in their wake. Shadow Lake Cabin and the wandering headless figure endure as a testament to the mysteries of the night. The lingering echoes of past lives. And the quiet, haunting beauty of places where the veil between the living and the unseen is thin. Those who encounter him carry the story with them. A reminder that some legends are not told in words alone, but are experienced in the stillness of the night. And the movement of a figure that vanishes when pursued. Whispering Oaks Cabin stands deep within a forest of towering oaks, their branches stretching like skeletal fingers toward the sky. The cabin is small and weathered, its wooden planks darkened by years of sun, rain, and neglect. Moss creeps along the roof, and the windows are clouded with dust, reflecting only the shifting shadows of the surrounding trees. Visitors are first struck by the silence that envelopes the cabin, a heavy quiet that seems to swallow all other sound. The air carries a weight, subtle but persistent, as if the forest itself holds its breath. Those who step inside often feel the atmosphere shift immediately, the temperature dropping slightly and a sense of being watched settling over them. The most unusual phenomenon begins quietly. A soft murmur emerges from the walls, like the faint rustle of leaves, almost indistinguishable from the wind outside. At first, it seems accidental, easily dismissed, yet the sound persists, growing more deliberate with time. The whispers carry words that are almost comprehensible, fragments of sentences from long ago. Some visitors report hearing familiar voices from the past, echoing through the cabin as if the walls themselves are recounting memories. A visitor might hear the tone of a loved one long gone, a voice calling a name, or snippets of conversation from decades earlier. The whispers are not always coherent, yet they convey a feeling of presence, of someone lingering in the shadows, watching and listening. Inside, the cabin is sparse. A wooden table stands in the center of the main room, its surface scratched and worn. A few chairs are scattered about, some tipped over as though recently disturbed. The fireplace is cold and empty, yet from it, a faint hum can be heard, mingling with the whispers in the walls. Every step on the creaking floorboard seems amplified, echoing unnaturally, contributing to the sensation that the building is alive in some intangible way. Visitors describe the walls as speaking directly to them, repeating phrases in voices both familiar and strange. Sometimes the voices mimic their own words, repeating questions or statements moments after they are spoken. It is disorienting and surreal, as though the cabin is listening intently, responding silently, and observing every movement. The phenomenon is not threatening, but it is unsettling. The whispers are like shadows of memory, carrying fragments of lives once lived within the cabin. Some suggest that the wood itself has absorbed the energy of past inhabitants, holding on to their thoughts, their emotions, and their conversations. Every creak, every sigh, seems to be infused with the remnants of human presence. As night falls, the effect intensifies. The forest darkens. And the cabin is bathed in shadows that stretch and shift with the flickering light of a lantern or flashlight. Sometimes clear, sometimes broken into syllables. always carrying the weight of unseen witnesses. People who spend extended time in the cabin notice patterns. The voices may speak directly to them, repeating questions, recounting brief stories, or echoing laughter from long ago. The walls seem to remember, and they repeat, preserving moments that might otherwise have faded into obscurity. Some report hearing arguments, joyful exchanges, or quiet reflections, as though the house itself is telling the history of those who once lived there. It is not merely a collection of sounds, but an immersive experience. Visitors feel a deep connection to the past, a sense that they are walking among memories preserved in wood and stone. The cabin teaches patience and attentiveness, requiring those inside to listen carefully, to follow the shifting tones of the whispers, and to acknowledge the stories carried within the walls. Despite the disorientation, or perhaps because of it, Whispering Oaks Cabin draws curiosity. Writers, historians, and explorers are drawn to it, hoping to capture its essence, to experience the lingering voices, and to document the stories embedded in its structure. Yet no one can fully explain the source of the phenomenon, and no one leaves without a sense of awe and a lingering impression of the past echoing around them. The whispers are not constant, but they always return to those who linger. Even when visitors leave, a sense of the cabina's presence remains, as though it has imprinted itself on their consciousness. People speak of the experience for years afterward, recalling words that may never have existed, voices they felt close to, and a mysterious awareness that the walls themselves remember. Whispering Oaks Cabin is more than an abandoned building in the forest. It is a repository of memory, a place where the boundaries between past and present blur. The walls do not merely contain space, they carry the weight of human experience, echoing emotions, conversations, and voices through time. Each visitor becomes part of the ongoing dialogue, hearing the whispers, sensing the unseen, and leaving with a story that continues long after the forest has reclaimed its silence. The cabin stands as a testament to the enduring nature of memory, the power of human presence. The power of human presence, and the inexplicable ways that the past can communicate with the present. Whispering Oaks Cabin continues to call to those who are willing to listen, offering a haunting yet fascinating glimpse into the unseen lives that shaped its walls. And the voices that speak, softly but insistently, to anyone who dares to enter. And the voices that speak, softly but insistently, to anyone who dares to enter. Foggy Ridge Cabin stands perched on a remote hillside, shrouded in mist that rolls down from the surrounding mountains. By day, the forested slopes seem serene, a quiet escape from the world. But as twilight descends, a different presence awakens, one that cannot be seen in sunlight. Travelers who venture near the cabin report a strange illumination hovering in the fog. It appears at first as a soft glow, distant and hesitant, moving through the mist as if guided by an unseen hand. The light resembles an old lantern, its amber hue flickering gently, cutting through the gray haze. Observers often pause, caught between curiosity and caution, feeling an inexplicable pull toward the floating glow. The lantern drifts with a slow, deliberate motion. Approaches without sound, gliding over the damp earth and through the low-hanging fog. Its movement is not hurried. Yet there is an uncanny intelligence in the way it navigates the terrain, avoiding obstacles as if aware of its surroundings. Many describe the sensation of being watched, a quiet awareness that accompanies the lantern's presence. As the light draws nearer, it evokes both wonder and unease. The fog thickens around travelers, dampening sound and limiting sight, leaving only the lanterna's glow as a guide. Those who attempt to move closer report that the lantern seems to respond, adjusting its path to maintain distance, sometimes drifting to the side or retreating just as it seems within reach. The effect is mesmerizing, a spectral dance of pursuit and evasion. The phenomenon is not confined to one area. Visitors on the nearby trail, the cabin porch, or the adjacent clearing all encounter the lantern. Yet each experience is unique. Some see it hovering just above the ground, casting moving shadows among the trees. Others find it rising higher, floating above the treetops before descending again. The interplay of light and fog creates a sense of unreality, making it difficult to discern whether the lantern is physical or entirely spectral. Whether the lantern is physical or entirely spectral. Witnesses often describe a palpable tension in the air. The fog carries a chill that seeps into clothing and skin, yet the light itself brings an almost comforting warmth, a paradox that adds to the otherworldly impression. Sounds of the forest fade into silence, leaving only the faint rustle of leaves and the soft sway of branches in the mist. The lantern becomes the sole focus, a beacon that is both inviting and elusive. Some who have followed the lantern report subtle shifts in the environment. Rocks and fallen branches seem rearranged. The path subtly altered as if the presence has shaped the space around it. These changes are minor but noticeable, reinforcing the sense that the lantern is not merely drifting but interacting with its surroundings. The encounter becomes an experience of immersion, where reality bends and ordinary rules no longer seem to apply. The lanterna's disappearance is as sudden as its appearance. One moment, it hovers close enough to touch, illuminating the damp earth and mist with a steady glow. The next, it vanishes without a trace, leaving no mark, no warmth, only the lingering echo of light and the memory of movement. Travelers are often left in silence, staring into the fog, their minds grappling with what they have seen and the impossibility of the phenomenon. Local lore hints at the lanterna's origin, though explanations vary. Some suggest it is the spirit of a lost traveler, forever searching for a safe path through the fog. Others speak of it as a guardian, warning those who approach of hidden dangers on the ridge. Regardless of interpretation, the effect is consistent. The lantern manifests at dusk, floats with purpose, and disappears with the same quiet certainty that it appeared. The experience leaves a lasting impression. Those who have witnessed the floating lantern speak of it in terms of awe and reverence. The gentle sway of the light, the way it moves with intent yet avoids direct contact, creates a narrative without words. Tells a story of presence, of observation, and of a world just beyond the grasp of human perception. Foggy Ridge Cabin itself becomes part of the phenomenon, a silent anchor in the shifting mist. The structure appears ordinary in daylight, but at dusk it frames the spectral display. Its walls and windows reflecting the lanterna's glow in fleeting glimpses. Observers feel drawn to the cabin yet understand that the encounter is not about entering the building, but witnessing the light and the rhythm it carries. The lantern encourages patience and attentiveness. Those who rush or demand to capture it often find themselves disappointed. It is a phenomenon that unfolds on its own terms, teaching quiet observation and respect for the unseen. Each sighting is ephemeral, a brief alignment of perception and presence, and then it is gone, leaving only the fog and the memory of light. Travelers leave Foggy Ridge with a sense of wonder, a story of a light that moves independently, with intelligence and intent. The floating lantern becomes more than an apparition, it is a symbol of mystery, a bridge between the tangible world and the unseen. Its presence evokes questions about what exists beyond our senses, about histories and spirits carried in the fog, and about the moments when the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary. To stand on the ridge at dusk, watching the lantern drift and vanish, is to engage with the unknown. It is to feel the pulse of the unseen, and to witness a phenomenon that defies explanation, yet leaves a profound impression. Foggy Ridge Cabin and its floating lantern endure as a place where light moves with purpose. Mystery fills the air, and the veil between reality and the spectral is thin, inviting, and unforgettable. Raven's Nest Cabin sits deep within a dense forest, surrounded by towering pines that block much of the sunlight during the day. Cast long, eerie shadows at night. The air carries a chill, even in the warmer months. And the forest floor is carpeted with fallen needles and moss, muffling footsteps and lending a quiet stillness to the surroundings. For years, the cabin has drawn hikers and travelers seeking solitude or a retreat from the noise of the outside world. Most who visit leave with memories of peaceful mornings and star-filled nights. Yet there is another side to this place, one whispered about by locals and travelers who have stayed longer than a single night. The forest around Ravenna's Nest is said to be haunted by the spirit of a child, whose screams pierce the night, sudden and chilling, echoing through the trees without warning. Those who have heard the scream describe it as sharp, high-pitched, and filled with terror. It is not a scream of anger, but one of fear and confusion, cutting through the forest silence with a rawness that is impossible to ignore. The sound seems to come from all directions at once, bouncing between trees and fading into the darkness, leaving listeners disoriented and alert. Some have attempted to investigate the source, following the echoes into the thick forest. They describe a sense of being watched, of eyes hidden behind the shadows, tracking each cautious step. The deeper into the woods they go, the colder the air becomes, and the forest seems to close around them, branches tangling and leaves brushing like unseen fingers. Then, just when they think they have glimpsed the child, a fleeting figure darts between the trees, gone before it can be approached. The figure is often described as small and indistinct, barely visible in the moonlight. It moves with unnatural speed, vanishing among the trunks and underbrush as if the forest itself protects it. The sense of presence lingers, however, long after the sighting ends. Those who experience it often feel a chill down the spine, a brush of cold air. And the haunting sense that the child is aware of their attention, watching yet unreachable. Visitors have reported other subtle signs of the child's presence. Footprints appear in the soft soil near the edge of the forest. Small and fleeting, as if left by tiny shoes that vanish with the morning light. Occasionally, objects near the cabin are found slightly moved or displaced, as though handled by unseen hands. Doors creak on their own, and the wind seems to carry a faint, sorrowful giggle when no one else is around. Local legend speaks of a child who disappeared many years ago, lost while exploring the dense forest near the cabin. Despite extensive searches at the time, no trace was ever found. Over the years, the story has evolved, becoming part of the cabina's identity. Those who live or work near the forest speak of the screaming child as a restless spirit, caught between worlds, wandering the woods and returning to the places she once knew. The forest amplifies every sound, and travelers describe an unsettling layering of noises, the creak of branches, the whisper of leaves, the distant call of nocturnal birds, and beneath it all, the unmistakable scream that cuts through the natural chorus. The intensity of the sound varies, sometimes distant and mournful, other times close enough to feel the panic behind it. No matter the distance, the scream draws attention, compelling listeners to seek its source, even when every instinct tells them to remain still. Some who have ventured out report encountering the figure multiple times during a single night. Each appearance is brief and elusive, a flash of motion between shadows, never offering an opportunity to interact. The child seems to move along specific paths through the forest, almost as if following an invisible routine or returning to places of significance from a life interrupted. The cabin itself holds an eerie stillness when the forest is quiet. Inside, the air is heavy with the memory of unseen presence. Guests have described the sensation of small hands brushing their shoulder or the feeling of being gently tugged, as though the child is reaching out in search of something lost. Though the encounters are never threatening, they are profoundly unsettling, leaving a lingering impression that persists long after leaving the cabin. Ravenna's Nest Cabin has become a place where the living and the unseen intersect. The combination of the dense forest, the quiet of the surroundings, and the spectral presence of the child creates an atmosphere of tension and curiosity. Travelers enter hoping to experience Naturia's solitude, yet they leave carrying the memory of fleeting glimpses, distant screams, and the intangible feeling of being watched. Over the years, the legend has persisted, passed down from local guides to new visitors. The child's presence has been documented in countless anecdotes, each encounter adding depth to the story. Some believe she searches endlessly for her way home, others think she lingers out of unfinished business, tethered to the forest by events long past. By morning, the screams fade, the forest returns to its quiet state, and the shadows retreat with the rising sun. The fleeting figure vanishes into the dense undergrowth, leaving behind only the memory of terror and fascination. Those who have experienced the phenomenon carry it with them, a reminder that Ravena's nest cabin and the surrounding forest are more than they seem. The cabin and forest remain patient, waiting for the next traveler to hear the scream, see the fleeting figure, and feel the haunting presence of the child who cannot rest. Each encounter is a fleeting glimpse into the unseen world, a brush with a presence that exists just beyond perception, leaving an indelible mark on those who witness it. Silver Creek Cabin sits tucked into a narrow valley, surrounded by dense pines and the distant echoes of rushing water. The building is modest and weathered, its wooden exterior darkened by years of exposure to wind and rain. By day, it appears abandoned, a relic of a time when miners and prospectors worked the rugged landscape. But as dusk falls, a different presence awakens within its walls. Visitors report seeing a figure inside the cabin, moving with quiet determination. It is a miner, dressed in worn clothing from another era, his hands darkened as if permanently stained by coal and ore. He works silently, moving among abandoned tools and rusted machinery, adjusting equipment that has long since ceased to function. His movements are methodical, almost ritualistic, as if he is completing a task left unfinished decades ago. The first encounters often begin with subtle signs. A shadow shifts across the cabin floor, the faint clatter of tools echoes from a corner, or a soft scraping sound rises from the walls. He does not acknowledge observers, moving as though they are not there, entirely absorbed in his spectral labor. As witnesses approach, the miner vanishes. One moment he is shaping an invisible piece of ore, the next he dissolves into the air, leaving only the faint scent of dust and metal behind. Attempts to photograph him rarely succeed, capturing only blurred shapes or faint outlines that hint at a presence beyond the physical world. His disappearance is as sudden as his appearance, reinforcing the sense that he exists between realms, tethered to the cabin by unfinished business and enduring habit. Inside Silver Creek Cabin, the atmosphere is thick with history. The walls are lined with shelves once used for equipment and supplies. The floor is worn from decades of foot traffic. Old lanterns hang from hooks, casting dim shadows. The air carries a subtle chill, and the quiet is often punctuated by the soft, inexplicable noises of tools moving or machinery stirring. Stories of the restless miner vary among locals. Some say he was trapped in the mine nearby, forced to work until the end of his days. Others believe he is drawn to the cabin because it was the center of his labor, a place where he felt purpose and identity. His ghostly diligence is not threatening, but it is unnerving, a reminder that some attachments endure beyond death. The Minera's work is never complete, and he continues as he did in life, bound to the routines and rhythms that defined him. Witnesses describe a sense of time shifting within the cabin. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours. The air seems heavier, charged with energy that is both quiet and insistent. The miner's presence is more than a visual apparition, it is an experience that engages the senses. Observers feel the subtle movements of air as he passes, hear the faint creak of floorboards under invisible weight, and sense a focus and purpose that is unmistakably human. The surrounding forest contributes to the cabina's haunted atmosphere. Trees close in on the structure, their branches swaying with the wind and casting ever-moving shadows. The creek nearby babbles and crashes over rocks, blending with the sounds of the cabin to create an eerie symphony of nature and the unseen. The Minera's figure moves in harmony with this environment, almost as if he is a part of it, tending to his tools and machinery in silence while the world around him continues on its own path. Despite the unsettling nature of his presence, the miner is not malevolent. He does not interact aggressively with the living. And there is a sense of solemnity to his movements. He seems bound by duty, continuing the work that defined his life. Visitors often leave with a mixture of awe and melancholy, sensing a story of dedication and loss that transcends time. Encounters with the miner often leave an impression that lasts long after leaving Silver Creek Cabin. The image of him working in the shadows, silent and focused, is etched into memory. Even without understanding who he was or why he remains, there is a recognition of persistence and devotion that speaks across the years. Each visitor carries the story forward, adding to the lore of the restless figure who labors beyond death. The cabin itself remains a quiet witness. Its wooden walls and worn floors bear the weight of countless memories. Each tool, each piece of machinery, seems to echo with past labor. And the presence of the miner reinforces that connection. At night, when the forest grows dark and the creek sings quietly, the cabin comes alive in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. Shadows move, tools shift. And the restless miner continues his eternal work. The story is not one of terror, but of enduring presence, a ghostly reminder of lives once lived and labors once completed. Those who visit witness a slice of history preserved in motion, a figure caught between the world of the living and the unseen. A ghostly reminder of lives once lived and labors once completed. Wolf Pine Cabin sits on the edge of a dense forest, its wooden exterior weathered by years of wind and snow. The surrounding pines creak and sway, casting long, shifting shadows across the ground. The air is heavy with the scent of pine needles and damp earth, carrying an eerie stillness that settles over the area as dusk falls. The stillness is oppressive, weighing heavily on the shoulders of the lone figure approaching the cabin. Visitors often arrive during the day, drawn by the cabina's rustic charm and isolation. From a distance, it appears inviting, a quiet retreat tucked among the towering trees. Yet as the sun dips below the horizon, the atmosphere changes. Shadows stretch and deepen, and the forest seems to close in. Its silence broken only by the whisper of the wind through the pines. It is at night that the phenomena begin. A black dog appears along the tree line, its coat glossy and dark as the night. The animal moves with deliberate grace, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light, the animal moves with deliberate grace, its eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Witnesses describe a low, resonant growl that seems to emanate from the shadows rather than the dog itself. The dog does not approach immediately, instead circling the cabin, sometimes pausing to fix its gaze on a window or door. Its presence is tangible, yet impossible to contain. When anyone steps outside, the dog advances with a slow, measured step, growling with an intensity that feels almost otherworldly. Then, as soon as a hand reaches toward it, the creature vanishes without a trace, leaving only the cold night air and a lingering sense of unease. Locals tell stories of past encounters. Hikers and travelers who have stayed at Wolf Pine Cabin speak of glimpses of the dog in the corner of their eyes, always on the periphery, always vanishing when observed directly. Some have tried to follow it into the woods, only to find the forest empty, the path behind them undisturbed as though no creature had passed that way. The phenomenon is not limited to visual encounters. Visitors report hearing the doga's growl from inside the cabin, even when the windows are closed and the doors are locked. The sound is distinct and unnerving, echoing through the wooden walls, vibrating through the floor, and reverberating in the silence of the forest beyond. The growl carries a weight, an awareness that the presence is not merely spectral but intelligent, deliberate, and observant. Many have speculated about the origin of the black dog. Some suggest it is a guardian spirit, bound to the cabin and the surrounding woods, perhaps protecting a secret long forgotten. Others believe it is the lingering spirit of a loyal companion from decades past, unable to leave the land it once roamed. The true nature of the creature remains unknown, yet its appearances are consistent, a pattern that has been recorded over generations. The forest surrounding Wolf Pine Cabin contributes to the sensation of the supernatural. In the moonlight, the dog's form can appear larger than life, its eyes gleaming with an intelligence that is disconcerting and compelling. The cabin, though small and modest, becomes the focal point of the encounters, as if the dog's presence is bound to the structure and the clearing around it. Visitors who witness the dog describe a range of emotions. Fear is common, yet there is also fascination. The creature's sudden appearance, its vanishings, and the echoing growls create a tension that is both thrilling and unnerving. Some feel compelled to stay longer, hoping to catch another glimpse, to understand its movements, and to witness the mystery firsthand. Others leave immediately, unable to shake the sensation of being watched by something unseen yet present. The experiences at Wolf Pine Cabin are often accompanied by subtle signs. Footprints appear in the snow around the clearing, only to vanish without a trace. A faint scent of wet fur sometimes lingers, carried on the night air, only to dissipate moments later. These occurrences reinforce the sense that the black dog is not a mere illusion but a persistent presence. Despite repeated attempts to photograph or capture the creature, it eludes all efforts. Cameras fail, flashlights dim inexplicably. And any attempt to corner it ends with nothing visible but the darkness of the forest. This persistence adds to the legend, creating an atmosphere where the line between reality and the spectral becomes blurred. Wolf Pine Cabin and its vanishing dog have become a point of fascination for researchers, paranormal enthusiasts, and storytellers. They come seeking evidence, attempting to document encounters, and experiencing firsthand the unsettling phenomena. Yet each visitor leaves with more questions than answers, a deepened awareness of the mysterious presence that roams the woods, and a memory of the cold growl echoing long after the dog has vanished. The black dog of Wolf Pine Cabin remains a silent guardian, a spectral witness to the passage of time. Its appearances remind visitors that the forest holds secrets beyond comprehension, and that some mysteries persist despite attempts to understand them. Those who encounter the creature leave with a story of a night filled with shadows, an unseen observer, and a presence that is as real as it is impossible to touch. A presence that is as real as it is impossible to touch. The black dog of Wolf Pine Cabin remains a silent guardian, a spectral witness to the passage of time. Its appearances remind visitors that the forest holds secrets beyond comprehension, and that some mysteries persist despite attempts to understand them. Those who encounter the creature leave with a story of a night filled with shadows, an unseen observer, and a presence that is as real as it is impossible to touch. Wolf Pine Cabin continues to stand in its quiet clearing, surrounded by the dense forest, its windows reflecting moonlight and shadows. The black dog may appear again, as it has for generations, a reminder that some mysteries are eternal, bound to the land, the cabin, and the forest itself. Visitors know that when they step into the clearing at night, they may glimpse the glowing eyes of the vanishing dog, hear the low resonant growl, and feel the presence of something that exists beyond the limits of ordinary perception. Blackwood Cabin rests deep within a secluded forest, surrounded by towering trees that sway gently in the evening breeze. By day, the cabin is a quiet retreat, its wooden walls and stone chimney blending seamlessly with the natural surroundings. Yet when night falls, a different presence emerges, one that transforms the clearing into a stage for a haunting spectacle. Travelers passing by often speak of figures appearing in the moonlight. At first, it is just a flicker of motion among the trees, a shimmer that draws the eye. Then the forms take shape, a man and a woman, dressed in attire from a bygone era, moving gracefully across the clearing as if in a private ballroom beneath the stars. Their movements are fluid, a silent dance that seems untouched by time. The moonlight casts long shadows, illuminating the couple as they twirl and sway. The dance is slow, deliberate, and strangely synchronized, with an elegance that contrasts sharply with the stillness of the surrounding forest. Leaves rustle quietly in the breeze, and the night air is filled with the faint sound of footsteps on the soft grass, yet the couple remains untethered to any earthly rhythm. Approaching the figures is both irresistible and forbidden. Those who step closer often find the couple responding to proximity in unexpected ways. The dancers seem aware of the observer, adjusting their distance subtly, maintaining a gap that preserves the illusion of mystery. The closer one moves, the more ethereal they become, their forms flickering like candlelight in a draught, until they vanish entirely, leaving behind only footprints behind in the dew-kissed grass. The footprints are peculiar. They appear in pairs, perfectly aligned, as if the dancers had never missed a step. They lead across the clearing in elegant arcs and circles, tracing the contours of an unseen ballroom. Yet, no one reports seeing where the footprints begin or end. They are tangible evidence of the apparition, grounding the supernatural experience in the physical world, yet offering no answers about the couple's origin or fate. Witnesses often describe a heightened awareness during the encounter. The night becomes thicker, the air cooler, and the forest sounds quieter. Even the wind seems to pause, allowing the dance to unfold undisturbed. There is a sense that time itself has slowed, creating a bubble where the past and present converge. And the ordinary rules of reality no longer apply. Local legends suggest that the couple were once residents of the cabin, lovers who met tragedy in their lives. Some claim they perished on a stormy night, unable to escape the elements, yet their bond remained unbroken. A ritual that keeps their connection alive, allowing them to move together forever under the watchful eye of the moon. The phenomenon is not confined to one night or one observer. Over the years, many have come to Birchwood Cabin seeking the experience. Some report seeing the figures emerge only briefly, their movements blurred and distant. Others witness the entire dance, clear and vivid, the couple circling and twirling in perfect harmony. Each sighting carries a profound sense of intimacy, as if the viewer is privy to a private world just beyond human reach. The clearing itself becomes part of the performance. Shadows stretch and contract across the ground. Trees lean in as if to watch. And the moonlight shifts to follow the dancers. The environment interacts with the apparition, enhancing the sense of a living, breathing moment suspended in time. Even the night sky seems to accommodate the spectacle. Stars twinkling faintly, echoing the rhythm of the dance. After the figures vanish, the forest feels empty yet charged with lingering energy. The footprints remain as evidence, the faintest trace of a world that briefly intersected with their own. The experience evokes emotions ranging from wonder to melancholy, a recognition of beauty that exists beyond explanation. Birchwood Cabin and its phantom couple endure as a testament to the power of memory and emotion. The apparition invites reflection on love, loss, and the persistence of connection beyond mortal life. Those who witness the dance are left with more than curiosity, they carry a fragment of the Forsta's mystery. A reminder that some stories are written not in words but in motion, in the soft imprint of footsteps under the moonlight. To stand in the clearing, watching the phantom couple move and vanish, is to experience a fleeting encounter with the impossible. The dance is timeless, an ethereal performance that bridges past and present, human and spectral. Birchwood Cabin becomes a place where the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, where the moonlight reveals secrets, and where two souls continue to dance, unseen yet ever present, leaving behind only the silent testimony of their footprints. Timberfall Cabin sits isolated among towering evergreens, a weathered structure that seems to blend into the dense forest surrounding it. The wooden walls creak under the weight of age, and the scent of pine and earth fills the air, mingling with the faint aroma of smoke from an old stone fireplace. The scent of pine and earth fills the air, mingling with the faint aroma of smoke from an old stone fireplace. The cabin welcomes travelers seeking solitude, yet there is an unspoken warning whispered by locals: Timberfall is home to a presence that can be felt but never seen. Yet there is an unspoken warning whispered by locals: Timberfall is home to a presence that can be felt but never seen. Visitors often speak of sudden chills that descend upon them inside the cabin, drops in temperature so severe they draw goosebumps even on the warmest summer days. The air grows icy without wind or open windows, and the effect is localized, as if one specific corner of the room harbors something unseen. Those who experience it report a distinct sensation of being watched, accompanied by a subtle tightening of the chest, a pressure that is impossible to ignore. The cold spots are not constant but appear unpredictably, heightening the tension of anyone exploring the cabin after dusk. Guests describe the chill as more than a mere temperature change. The chill carries an almost physical weight, pressing down on shoulders, brushing against arms, and lingering long after they move to another part of the room. The phenomenon is accompanied by an eerie stillness, a hush that swallows even the faintest creak of the cabin, leaving the space unnervingly quiet. Some have tried to trace the source of the cold, searching behind furniture, under floorboards, and near the fireplace. Yet there is nothing. No drafts, no leaks, and no mechanical explanation can account for the sudden drops in temperature. It is as if the very air itself has taken on a life of its own, carrying the presence of something invisible but undeniably there. Visitors have also reported subtle movements in the periphery of vision. Shadows shift without light to cast them, and reflections in old glass panes sometimes show fleeting shapes that disappear when looked at directly. The combination of cold, silence, and movement creates an atmosphere thick with anticipation, keeping those inside on edge, uncertain what might occur next. The cabina's history adds another layer to its mystery. Timberfall was built over a century ago by a family whose presence lingers in local lore. Tales speak of long nights spent by the fireplace, of whispered conversations and arguments carried on the wind. Some believe the cold spots are remnants of the lives once lived within the cabin. Residual energy left behind, interacting with the living in subtle but unmistakable ways. Psychics and paranormal investigators visiting the cabin have confirmed what many guests feel intuitively. Their instruments detect sharp drops in temperature, changes in electromagnetic fields, and energy patterns that suggest an unseen presence. They often describe the sensation as both melancholic and alerting, as if the entity is neither hostile nor welcoming, simply aware of the living intruding upon its space. The cold spots seem to have a rhythm of their own. Some appear in the kitchen, others near the staircase. And sometimes the chill follows visitors from room to room. The unpredictability heightens the tension, creating an immersive experience where every sound is amplified. The creak of floorboards, the rustle of trees outside, and the distant call of an owl take on a haunting quality, as though each is part of a larger, unseen narrative unfolding within Timberfall Cabin. Guests who spend the night report difficulty sleeping. The air in the cabin feels heavier as darkness deepens, and every attempt to rest is accompanied by the sensation of invisible eyes tracking their movements. Some awake to the fireplace stone cold despite a fire burning minutes before. Others notice their breath forming misty clouds in the air, though no windows are open, reinforcing the sense of unnatural cold that pervades the cabin. Despite the unsettling experiences, visitors often describe the presence as strangely neutral. It is not aggressive, nor does it attempt to harm. Instead, it imposes its presence quietly, a reminder that Timberfall Cabin is more than wood and stone. The cold is a signature, an indication that the unseen inhabitant of the cabin is near, watching, and interacting with the living in a subtle, almost contemplative way. Over the years, Timberfall Cabin has attracted storytellers, photographers, and paranormal enthusiasts. Each recounts similar experiences of sudden cold, the feeling of an invisible gaze, and the elusive nature of the presence. Photographs occasionally capture anomalies, faint orbs or blurs, shapes that defy explanation. Video recordings sometimes pick up drops in temperature or subtle distortions in the air. Yet, no single explanation can fully account for the consistency of these reports. By morning, the cold recedes, and the cabin returns to a normal state. Light streams through the windows, revealing the rustic charm of the space and the forest beyond. Yet for those who have spent the night, the memory of the icy touch, the pressure in the air, and the awareness of something unseen lingers. It is a reminder that Timberfall Cabin is alive in a way few places are, existing in a space where the living and the unseen converge. Visitors leave Timberfall Cabin with a profound sense of respect for the unknown. The cold spots serve as both warning and invitation, an encounter that is unsettling yet deeply compelling. Each person who experiences it carries the memory of the presence, a brush with something beyond understanding, leaving an indelible impression of Timberfall Cabin as a place where the ordinary and the supernatural intersect. The cabin waits quietly, patient and unchanging, as the forest breathes around it. And when night falls again, the cold spots return, reminding any who enter that Timberfall Cabin is a place where the unseen makes itself known. And where the living are only guests in a space shaped by forces beyond comprehension. Moonshadow Cabin rests in a secluded clearing, surrounded by dense pines and the faint whisper of wind through the branches. Its weathered timbers are darkened with age, and the roof sags slightly, telling of years of exposure to storms and snow. By day, the cabin seems silent and abandoned, a forgotten structure at the edge of the forest. But as night falls, a strange light begins to stir within, heralding the presence of something not entirely of this world. Visitors often first notice the lantern. It lights itself, flickering to life with a warm, golden glow that cuts through the darkness. No match is struck, no hand reaches to adjust it. The light appears to come from nowhere, hovering as if suspended by some unseen force. The lantern casts long shadows along the walls and floor, illuminating the worn furniture and simple household objects with an eerie clarity. It is in this glow that ghostly figures begin to appear. They are faint, almost translucent, moving slowly and deliberately across the cabin. They pass through corners and walls, their presence marked by subtle disturbances, a creak of floorboards, the rustle of fabric, or the quiet sigh of a door that moves without cause. The lantern's light seems to draw these apparitions, guiding them as if it were a beacon from another time. Some figures appear to be performing ordinary tasks, tending to the hearth, arranging objects on shelves, or pausing by windows to look out into the dark forest. Others seem more restless, pacing or standing motionless in the center of the room, their gaze fixed on nothing in particular. Observers often report feeling watched, an awareness of eyes that exist beyond the physical. Despite the unsettling nature of the cabin, the figures do not interact aggressively with visitors. They are observers rather than intruders, caught in a world that exists alongside, but not entirely within, the living realm. Witnesses describe a mixture of fascination and unease, sensing a connection to lives once lived and routines long abandoned. The lantern's glow becomes a medium through which history and memory converge, revealing the cabin as a space that is both temporal and eternal. Sounds within the cabin heighten the experience. The faint clink of metal, the shuffle of footsteps, and soft murmurs drift through the air. These are never loud or alarming, but they suggest a rhythm and presence that is unmistakably human. The figures are bound to the cabin and its lantern, moving with a purpose that seems rooted in the lives they once led. Time behaves differently here, stretching moments into something elongated and almost dreamlike. Moonshadow Cabin's isolation amplifies the haunting. The surrounding forest is thick, muffling distant noises and intensifying the stillness. Shadows from the trees merge with those cast by the lantern, creating shapes that seem alive. The wind carries whispers and rustles, blending with the cabin's own subtle sounds to form a symphony of the unseen. Those who approach the cabin after dark often speak of a sensation of crossing a threshold into a different reality, where light, shadow, and spirit intermingle. The lantern itself remains central to the experience. Its flame dances and flickers as if alive, responding to the movements of the spirits it reveals. Visitors often find themselves drawn toward it, as though compelled to witness the activity it highlights. The light becomes both guide and storyteller, showing glimpses of lives, habits, and a world that has slipped quietly away. Its flame dances and flickers as if alive, responding to the movements of the spirits it reveals. Many who encounter the lantern ghost leave with a lingering impression of wonder and melancholy. The figures are not threatening, yet they evoke an awareness of mortality and the persistence of memory. The cabin becomes a living tableau, a place where the past is tangible and present simultaneously. Each apparition, each movement, is a reminder of the continuity between what has been and what endures in spirit. Accounts of Moonshadow Cabin vary, but common themes emerge. The lantern lights itself without fail, ghostly figures appear in its glow. And the atmosphere is one of quiet reverence mixed with subtle unease. Those who have experienced the phenomenon speak of its beauty and strangeness. Of a place where human presence lingers long after physical departure. The cabin embodies a connection to lives that existed, routines that persisted. And a quiet longing that the light of the lantern illuminates for all who enter. Those who have experienced the phenomenon speak of its beauty and strangeness. Of a place where human presence lingers long after physical departure. The cabin embodies a connection to lives that existed, routines that persisted. And a quiet longing that the light of the lantern illuminates for all who enter. Moonshadow Cabin stands as a testament to the unseen world. Its lantern casts a glow not just on walls and furniture, but on memories, spirits, and the enduring echo of lives once lived. The figures move with purpose, bound to the cabin and its light, revealing a story of continuity, observation, and quiet dedication. Visitors leave changed, carrying with them the sense of a place where the living and the spectral converge, and where a single lantern can illuminate the mysteries of time and existence. Dark Hollow Cabin stands quietly on the edge of a dense forest, where sunlight struggles to penetrate the thick canopy of trees. The air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and pine. And a faint wind whispers through the branches, carrying with it a sense of history and secrets long buried. From the outside, the cabin appears abandoned. Its wooden walls weathered and gray, yet inside, the atmosphere is charged with something unseen. Something that lingers beyond the ordinary. Visitors often speak of a presence. A figure that moves with purpose yet never acknowledges their gaze. A soldier appears, dressed in a uniform that belongs to a bygone era, his boots echoing softly on the creaking wooden floor. His face is somber, a reflection of duty and perhaps regret, yet he seems unaware of anyone else in the room. The first encounter is always startling. Those who step inside the cabin report the sudden awareness of someone nearby, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. A chair may shift slightly, a shadow falls across the corner of the room, and then, from the gloom, he appears. The soldier moves with quiet determination, his eyes fixed on a point just beyond reach. And no matter how close anyone tries to come, he vanishes the moment contact is attempted. It is as if he exists in a layer of reality separate from our own, tethered only to the memories that haunt these walls. The cabin itself tells a story, though it is silent and still. Dust lies in thin layers across the surfaces, and the furniture, though aged and worn, seems carefully placed, as if someone left in a hurry but wanted order to remain. The furniture, though aged and worn, seems carefully placed, as if someone left in a hurry but wanted order to remain. Old photographs hang crookedly on the walls, their subjects indistinct, faces blurred by time and the elements. Their subjects indistinct, faces blurred by time and the elements. The fireplace holds ashes from years past, yet sometimes, visitors swear they see a flicker of flame when no wood is burning. Yet sometimes, visitors swear they see a flicker of flame when no wood is burning. Many have tried to understand the soldier, to uncover why he is bound to Dark Hollow Cabin. Some speculate that he is the echo of a conflict long forgotten, a guardian of secrets, or perhaps a lost soul unable to move on. The uniform hints at a time of war, and the discipline in his movements suggests that even in death, the habits of service remain. Visitors describe the sensation of cold spots that form in his presence, sudden chills that seem to seep into the bones. The temperature drops subtly, the kind of cold that cannot be explained by drafts or weather. It is not frightening in a traditional sense, but it is unsettling, a reminder that the cabin is occupied by something beyond the ordinary. Some who have spent hours inside report hearing soft murmurs, almost like distant orders or conversations, carried on the wind through the cracks in the walls. At times, the sound of a boot scraping against wood breaks the silence, followed by the faint rustle of fabric. These noises vanish as quickly as they appear, leaving only the echo in the mind and the undeniable feeling that someone is near, just out of reach. The outside world seems to fade when one steps into Dark Hollow Cabin. Time moves differently, slower and heavier, as if the cabin itself resists intrusion. Even sunlight filtering through the windows feels muted, shadows lengthening unnaturally across the floor. Visitors often find themselves caught between fascination and caution, drawn to the soldier yet wary of what they might see if they reach out. Every attempt to communicate is met with silence, and the soldier disappears before words can be exchanged. Over the years, the legend of Dark Hollow Cabin has grown, attracting those curious about the unexplained. Paranormal investigators, hikers, and history enthusiasts all venture to the cabin, each hoping to catch a glimpse of the soldier or experience the presence firsthand. Their stories, though varied, share common threads. The soldier appears, he moves with purpose. He cannot be approached, and the cabin seems to guard him. In place for reasons no one fully understands. The cabin continues to exist as a bridge between past and present. A place where history lingers in the form of a solitary figure. The soldier's presence reminds visitors that some stories do not end with the last page or the final battle. They persist, etched into walls and floors. Carried by the echoes of footsteps and the subtle shift of air. Dark Hollow Cabin remains a place of quiet mystery, its secrets guarded by the restless soldier. Each visitor who steps across its threshold becomes part of the ongoing story. A witness to the discipline, sorrow, and endurance of a presence. Though he cannot be touched, spoken to, or truly understood. His pacing, steadfast and unyielding, serves as a reminder of the persistence of memory and the enduring weight of history. Of history. The enduring weight of history. The persistence of memory and the enduring weight of history. As the sun sets and shadows deepen, the cabin seems to exhale. The soldier continuing his watch, forever caught between then and now. Unseen yet profoundly present. Those who leave often carry the memory with them. The image of a soldier in an old uniform, moving silently through a cabin. A guardian of stories that remain, patiently, in the dark. Nestled deep within a forest that seems untouched by time, Echo Pine Cabin stands as a quiet testament to the mysteries of the natural world. The cabin itself is modest, made of weathered timber and stone, with a sloping roof that dips into the shadows of towering pines. From a distance, it appears serene, inviting even. Yet, those who have ventured close quickly learn that the forest surrounding it holds secrets that are not easily spoken of. The trees here are ancient, their gnarled branches twisting high above, forming a dense canopy that filters the sunlight into fractured, shifting patterns on the forest floor. Wind through the pines carries a peculiar sound, almost like voices echoing through the branches. Locals have long called them the whispering trees, a warning and a wonder intertwined. Travelers who have stayed near the cabin often speak of sensations that defy explanation. A feeling of being watched settles over the forest as the day turns to dusk. Shadows stretch long and unnatural, and every rustle in the underbrush becomes amplified. As if the woods themselves are breathing in tandem with the visitor. Eyes unseen follow every movement, not with malice, but with an intent that is hard to define. Not with malice, but with an intent that is hard to define. The path to the cabin is lined with moss-covered stones and roots that twist like serpents through the earth. Footsteps on the forest floor echo unnaturally, as if the silence itself is listening. Many report hearing faint whispers that rise and fall with the wind, soft and urgent, calling attention to things they cannot see. Some dismiss it as imagination, but for those who have lingered, the sensation of being watched is undeniable. Inside, the cabin is simple and rustic, yet it feels alive with memory. The wooden walls are lined with shelves that hold small trinkets left by previous visitors, tokens of gratitude or fear. Sunlight filters through the windows, painting streaks across the floor that shift as the hours pass. In the evening, the air grows cooler, and the whispers from the trees outside seem to press closer against the walls. Visitors often describe moments when they sense a presence just beyond the edge of vision. A shadow flickers across the corner of a room, or a floorboard creaks though no one is walking nearby. The feeling is never threatening, yet it is persistent, insistent, as if the forest is trying to communicate something urgent. Many have reported hearing soft murmurs in the dark, almost like advice, or perhaps a warning. The forest itself seems to respond to the human presence. Birds fall silent, and the wind shifts unpredictably. Pine needles sway with no discernible breeze. And the distant murmur of a stream becomes louder, then suddenly still. It is as if the woods are aware, observing not just the body, but the mind and heart of those who wander within it. Night at Echo Pine Cabin is particularly profound. The sky darkens to a deep indigo. And stars pierce the canopy through gaps in the branches. Shadows lengthen and twist in impossible directions. And the wind carries voices that seem just beyond hearing. Some travelers have awakened to find footprints around the cabin that do not belong to any human or animal. Circling as though marking the territory of unseen observers. Despite the eerie sensations, there is also an undeniable beauty here. Moonlight filtering through pine needles creates patterns of silver and shadow. And the scent of earth and pine fills the air. The forest, though watchful, is alive in a way that is both captivating and humbling. Those who take the time to sit quietly beneath the trees report a strange sense of peace. As if the forest is offering a connection to something older than the cabin itself. Stories of the whispering trees spread quietly among hikers, travelers, and those who seek solitude. Few speak of their experiences in detail, and those who do often leave more questions than answers. Some insist they heard voices warning of unseen dangers, while others feel a presence guiding them safely through the darkened forest. No two experiences are exactly alike, yet all carry the same undertone, a forest that watches, listens, and communicates in ways humans can barely comprehend. Echo Pine Cabin stands as a bridge between the natural and the unknown. It invites curiosity, respect, and cautious wonder. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves, and every whisper in the wind becomes a reminder that some places are alive with a consciousness beyond our understanding. Travelers leave changed, carrying memories of whispers that echo long after they have returned to the world beyond the forest. For those who seek mystery, or the feeling of being part of a living, breathing forest, Echo Pine Cabin offers an experience unlike any other. It is a place where the lines between reality and the unseen blur. Where the forest speaks. And those who listen find themselves drawn into a story as old as the pines themselves. Here, among the whispering trees, every step, every sound, and every glance carries weight. The forest is patient, waiting, and attentive. It observes those who enter, not to harm, but to witness. It communicates in whispers that echo in the mind long after the wind has passed. reminding each visitor that they are never truly alone beneath the canopy of echo pine. Deep in the heart of a dense forest, where the tall black pine trees sway in the wind, stands an old cabin known to few. Its weathered wood and moss-covered roof suggest a place forgotten by time, yet those who have ventured near speak of an unusual and unsettling presence that lingers long after they leave. Travelers passing through the forest often describe a sense of being watched, a subtle feeling that something beyond the ordinary observes them from the shadows. Inside the cabin, a fireplace sits at the center of the main room, simple and unassuming, yet it holds a secret that has captured the curiosity of many. Flames ignite within it without any prompting, crackling softly as though welcoming an unseen guest. They dance for a moment, warm and bright, only to vanish suddenly, leaving behind nothing but cold ashes and an echo of what just was. The unpredictability of the fire has drawn both fascination and unease from those who dare to stay overnight. Some visitors report seeing fleeting reflections in the flames. A shadowy figure appears, blurred at the edges, moving as if observing the room with quiet patience. There is no one present when they turn to look directly, and yet the sense of a presence remains, tangible and persistent. The figure seems tied to the fire itself, appearing only when the flames come to life, vanishing entirely along with the last flicker. Locals tell stories of the cabin dating back decades, long before it was abandoned and left to the forest. It is said that those who lived there were attuned to the fire in unusual ways, though the details of their lives are lost to history. All that remains is the inexplicable phenomenon that continues to draw the curious, the daring, and the cautious alike. Those who have spent hours inside describe the room in vivid detail. The air carries a faint scent of wood smoke even when the fireplace lies dormant. Shadows stretch across the walls, shifting with each movement of the trees outside. The temperature fluctuates, sometimes warm and inviting, then suddenly cold, as if the cabin itself breathes in rhythm with the fire. Attempts to document the phenomenon have met with mixed results. Cameras capture flames that appear and vanish, yet they fail to show the shadowy figure clearly, leaving only distorted shapes and fleeting hints of movement. Audio recordings capture the faint crackle of fire, but no explanation is ever given for its spontaneous ignition. Even seasoned researchers find themselves questioning reality as the flames dance and disappear, leaving only silence and a lingering sense of being watched. The forest surrounding the cabin adds another layer of mystery. Tall pines obscure the sky, allowing only slivers of moonlight to filter through at night. The wind carries whispers through the branches, subtle sounds that some claim resemble distant voices or quiet footsteps. When approaching the cabin, the path seems to shift, with familiar trees appearing in unfamiliar arrangements. It is as if the forest itself conspires to guide visitors toward or away from the hidden dwelling. Even in daylight, the cabin exudes an atmosphere that is difficult to describe. The sunlight filtering through the trees does little to dispel the feeling that something lingers just out of sight. Visitors often pause at the doorway, hesitant to step inside, sensing that the ordinary rules of the world do not fully apply here. Inside, the fireplace remains the focal point. Flames ignite in patterns that seem almost deliberate, casting light across the room in uneven bursts. Shadows bend and stretch in strange directions, creating forms that almost appear human. Those who witness this describe a mix of awe and unease, as if the fire itself is aware of their presence and responds to it. Footsteps in the cabin are often reported, soft and tentative, as if someone walks along the creaking wooden floors when no one is present. A small item knocked asks you, always subtle but noticeable, that the space is alive in some way, tied to the mysterious flames at its center. The story of Black Pine Cabin continues to grow as more people encounter its enigmatic presence. Each visitor brings new accounts, some more vivid than others, adding to the legend of the vanishing fireplace flames. Yet no matter how many witnesses describe what they have seen, the fire remains unpredictable. And the shadowy figure continues to elude definition, existing at the boundary between the known and the unknown. Nestled deep in the evergreen forests of the Pacific Northwest stands a forgotten relic of simpler times. Misty Creek Cabin, weathered by decades of rain and wind, sits alone at the edge of a dense grove where sunlight barely touches the ground. Built in the early 1940s by a reclusive trapper named Elias Harrow. The cabin was abandoned shortly after his mysterious disappearance in 1952. Since then, it has become the subject of local whispers, late-night campfire tales, and more recently, curious investigators drawn by something far stranger than mere legend. The structure itself is unassuming, cedar logs darkened by moss, a rusted tin roof, and a single stone chimney that leans slightly to the east. Inside, time seems suspended. Dust motes drift through slanted beams of light that pierce broken windowpanes. A cast iron stove sits cold in the corner, its surface coated in a fine gray film. The wooden floor creaks with a voice all its own, groaning under even the lightest step as if remembering every footfall that ever crossed it. It was during a routine documentation trip in the autumn of 2023 that the first verified encounter occurred. A small team of historians had come to catalog the cabina's remaining artifacts before scheduled preservation work. On their second night, as fog rolled in thick from the creek bed, crew member Daniel Reyes stepped inside to retrieve a forgotten battery pack. He glanced toward the narrow stairwell that led to the sleeping loft and froze. There, halfway down the stairs, stood a figure tall, dark, and utterly still. Its form seemed to absorb the dim light, its features indistinct but undeniably present. Daniel called out, his voice echoing slightly in the hollow space. The figure did not respond. Instead, it turned slowly, as though acknowledging his presence. Then continued its descent. But as it reached the bottom step, something impossible happened. Rather than stepping onto the floor, it appeared to sink into the wall itself, fading like smoke caught in a draft. Leaving behind only the scent of damp earth and silence thick enough to weigh on the chest. Shaken but determined, the team reviewed their footage the following morning. The camera mounted near the fireplace had captured the entire event. There was no trick of the light, no reflection or shadow play. The figure moved with deliberate intent, then vanished without a trace. Local experts were consulted, structural anomalies examined, even thermal scans performed, but nothing explained what had been seen. Over the next year, others visited Misty Creek Cabin. Some seeking answers, others drawn by curiosity alone. Several reported sudden drops in temperature near the staircase. Others described hearing soft footsteps above them when the loft was confirmed empty. Yet every attempt to replicate or record the phenomenon yielded nothing. The entity, if it could be called that, remained elusive, appearing only when least expected. And never to more than one person at a time. Folklorists suggest the figure might be a residual echo, a fragment of the past replaying itself within the cabina's time-worn walls. Others wonder if Elias Harrow, lost to time and tragedy, somehow remains tied to the place he once called home. But no theory fully accounts for the intelligence implied by its movements, of the way it paused, the way it turned, as though aware. Today, Misty Creek Cabin stands under the protection of a regional heritage trust. Access is limited, and overnight stays are strictly prohibited. Yet on certain fog-laden evenings, when the wind stirs the pines just right, visitors claim they can see a shadow at the top of the stairs, watching, waiting, perhaps remembering. Whether it is memory made manifest or something beyond our current understanding, the truth remains just out of reach. Hidden in the quiet dark of an old wooden house, where every creak tells a story. And not all stories are meant to be solved. Tucked away in the misty folds of the Appalachian foothills, where the trees grow close and the valleys hold their secrets tight. Built in the late 1800s by a traveling musician named Cora Linley, the cabin was once a place of warmth, song, and community. Locals would gather on clear evenings to listen as Cora played her upright piano, a rich, mahogany instrument gifted to her by a grateful audience after a particularly moving performance in a neighboring town. But after Cora vanished without explanation in 1912, the cabin fell silent, left to the slow embrace of ivy and time. For decades, the structure stood empty, its windows clouded with grime, its porch sagging under the weight of neglect. Yet beginning in the early 2000s, hikers and forest rangers began reporting something unusual. On still nights, when the moon hung low and the creek whispered through the ravine, a sound would drift from the cabina, a piano melody, delicate and haunting, rising like mist through the trees. The tune was always the same. Gentle arpeggios flowing into a mournful refrain, neither joyful nor angry, but deeply sorrowful. Like a lullaby for someone long gone. Those who heard it described it as both beautiful and unsettling. As though the music carried an ache just beyond comprehension. No one ever saw a performer. No footprints led to the door. And every physical inspection revealed the piano untouched. Its lid closed, its keys dusted with the same fine layer as the rest of the room. In 2015, a team of acoustic researchers set up recording equipment in an effort to document the phenomenon. Their high-sensitivity microphones captured more than just the notisa. They recorded subtle pedal shifts, the faint creak of the piano bench, even the soft sigh of breath that seemed to come from nowhere. Most striking was the timing. The music always began precisely at 10 minutes past midnight. And ended exactly 23 minutes later. Never longer, never shorter. One researcher, Dr. Eleanor Marsh, returned alone the following spring, hoping to understand the emotional weight behind the composition. She brought with her historical sheet music from the era, comparing melodies, searching for matches. None aligned. The piece played at Hidden Hollow existed nowhere else. It was uniquia originala and carried motifs that suggested both classical training and deep personal grief. Dr. Marsh spent 3 nights inside the cabin. On the second, she awoke to the sound of the piano already playing. She lay still, listening. The notes filled the small space with such intimacy that she later described it as feeling like someone was playing just for her. When the music stopped, the silence that followed felt heavier than before. In her journal, she wrote that for the first time, she wondered not if the music was a ghost, but whether it was a message. Over the years, various theories have emerged. Some believe the cabin's unique acoustics, combined with wind patterns through a fissure in the hillside, might vibrate the piano strings just so. Others suggest temperature shifts cause the wood to expand and contract, mimicking keystrokes. Yet no scientific model has successfully reproduced the melody in full, especially not with its emotional cadence and consistent structure. Local elders speak of Cora Linley with reverence. They say she played the piano not just with her hands, but with her soul. And perhaps, in her absence, that soul never left the place where she last poured her heart into song. Whether the music is a recording of memory made audible, or something more ethereal, remains unknown. Today, Hidden Hollow Cabin is preserved as a cultural landmark. Visitors are welcome during daylight hours, though overnight stays are discouraged by park officials. Still, a few claim that if you stand near the tree line just after midnight, on nights when the air is still and the stars are bright, you can hear either the faint, mournful notes drifting through the pines. A song without a singer. A memory without a voice. And in that silence between the notes, something listens back. Greenwater Cabin stands in quiet solitude near the upper reaches of Silverpine Ridge, a place where the forest floor is carpeted with ferns and the only roads are those made by deer and wind. Built in the 1930s as a seasonal retreat for a forestry surveyor, the cabin has long outlived its original purpose. Its cedar walls are silvered by time, its chimney stained with years of quiet smokeless winters. For most of the 20th century, it remained unremarkably just another forgotten structure swallowed by the wilderness. That changed in the spring of 2018. It began with a hiker named Marcus Bellwether, who had taken a wrong turn on the North Loop Trail and stumbled upon the cabin just before dusk. Exhausted and low on water, he decided to rest on the porch. As he sat with his back against the weathered railing, he noticed movement down the trail, a figure walking slowly toward the cabin. The person wore a long coat, their head slightly bowed, moving with calm determination. Marcus called out a greeting, but the figure did not respond. Curious, he stood and walked down the path to meet them. He covered no more than 30 yards before stopping in disbelief. The trail ahead was empty. No rustle in the underbrush, no distant footsteps fading into the trees. Just silence, and the late afternoon light casting long shadows through the pines. Confused, Marcus turned back toward the cabina, and that is when he saw them. Fresh footprints in the soft dirt, leading right up to where he now stood. But beyond that point, the trail was undisturbed. The prints simply ended, as though the walker had stepped out of the world mid-stride. Marcus reported the incident to local rangers, who dismissed it as fatigue or trick of the light. But over the next 2 years, 5 more people described nearly identical experiences. Each time, a solitary figure was seen approaching the cabin from the east trail. Each time, the person vanished before contact could be made. And each time, only footprints remained, always stopping abruptly, always facing forward, as if the walker had been erased from the path itself. In 2021, a small research team equipped with motion-triggered cameras and soil sensors spent a week documenting the area. They found nothing out of the ordinary during daylight hours. But on their third night, a camera mounted near the trail captured something extraordinary. At precisely 9:47 p.m., a human-shaped silhouette appeared at the far edge of the frame. It walked steadily for 12 seconds before the image dissolved into statica. Not from a technical fault, but from a sudden localized electromagnetic distortion that affected only that one camera. More baffling were the footprints found the next morning. They matched no shoe brand, no known tread pattern. The depth and spacing suggested an adult of average height and weight, yet soil compression analysis showed no evidence of actual pressuria. Only the impression remained, like a mold with nothing to cast. Historians later uncovered that the original surveyor, Henry Darrow, once mentioned in a journal entry a recurring dream of a traveler who sought shelter at his door but always disappeared before reaching it. Darrow described the figure as neither threatening nor lost, but persistent, returning night after night in his dreams, always walking the same path, always just out of reach. Some now believe the phenomenon is not a ghost in the traditional sense, but a kind of psychic imprint, a moment of longing or unfinished journey echoing through time. The figure may not be aware of observers at all, merely repeating a path it believes it must complete. Today, Greenwater Cabin is maintained by the Regional Park Service, accessible only by guided hike due to its remote location. Rangers caution visitors not to follow the footprints if they appear, not out of fear, but out of respect. For whatever walks that trail may not be of this world, yet it seeks something quiet and human. On certain evenings, when the light slants just right through the trees, and the air is still, one might glimpse a shape far down the trail, walking slowly, purposefully. And if you go to meet it, you will find only the earth holding the shape of a step that was never truly taken. Nightfall Cabin rests at the far end of Hemlock Hollow, a remote stretch of forest where twilight arrives early and lingers long. Built in 1922 by a quiet widower named Thomas Vale, the cabin was meant to be a place of healing, a retreat from grief after the loss of his wife and young daughter in a tragic train accident. For years, Thomas lived in near isolation, tending a small garden, carving wooden animals for children who never came, and watching the seasons pass from his porch swing. When he passed in 1940, the cabin stood empty, its doors locked, its windows shuttered against the outside world. Decades went by with little attention paid to the structure. Until a local land surveyor named Lena Ortiz rediscovered it during a boundary mapping project in 2016. Drawn by the cabina's unusual stillness, she stepped inside. And immediately felt something unexpected, an overwhelming chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. As she turned to leave, she glimpsed a dark shape in the main doorway. It was tall and indistinct, like smoke given form. Standing perfectly still between her and the fading daylight. Instinctively, Lena raised her headlamp. The beam cut through the dim interiora and the figure vanished. Not with a sound, not with a blur, but instantly, as if it had never been there at all. Yet the cold remained. A deep, penetrating cold that clung to her skin long after she stepped back outside into the crisp evening. Word of her experience spread quietly among local hikers and paranormal researchers. Over the next few years, 7 other visitors reported nearly identical encounters. Each described the same shadowy figure in the doorway, and never aggressive, never moving closer, just watching. And each time, the moment a direct light source was aimed at it, it disappeared without a trace. In every account, the air grew colder in the seconds before the figure appeared and for several minutes afterward. In 2019, a team from the Northern Regional Historical Society installed discrete environmental sensors inside the cabin. Over the course of 3 months, they recorded unexplained temperature drops of up to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Always localized to the threshold of the front doorway, always occurring between 8 and 10 p.m. Motion detectors registered no physical presence. Infrared cameras saw only empty space. Yet audio logs consistently captured a low, rhythmic breathing sound during these events, a steady, calm, and undeniably human in quality. Archival research later revealed that Thomas Vale often sat in that very doorway after sunset, staring down the trail in the direction his family once came from. His journal, preserved in a county museum, contains a heartbreaking entry dated October 3, 1923. He wrote that sometimes, just before full dark, he saw them Kaminga walking up the path, smiling as they used to. But every time he rose to greet them, they faded away, leaving only the wind and the ache of memory. Some now believe that what lingers at Nightfall Cabin is not a spirit in the traditional sense, but a profound emotional echo, an imprint of hope that never stopped waiting. The figure in the doorway may not be Thomas himself, but the memory of his longing, replaying eternally in the place where he stood night after night, watching for those he could not bring back. Today, the cabin is preserved as a historical site, accessible only through scheduled ranger-led tours. Visitors are reminded not to shine bright lights into the doorway after dusk, not out of fear, but out of quiet reverence. For in that threshold between light and dark, something remains patient, watchful, and deeply human in its sorrow. On clear nights, when the trees are still and the stars burn bright above Hemlock Hollow, those who pause near the porch say they can feel it. Not a presence that startles, but one that mourns. And if you stand in the right place, with your light lowered, you might just see the shadow waiting, hoping, once more, that this time, they have finally come home. Thank you for joining me tonight as we explored the haunted forest cabins of Washington. From shadowy figures to phantom footsteps, crying children, and ghostly lanterns, these cabins hold echoes of the past, grief, and restless spirits. Some hauntings are subtle, lingering in the corners of your vision. Some are terrifying, appearing suddenly in front of your eyes. And some will follow you, leaving chills in your memory long after you leave the forest behind. If you ever find yourself alone in a forest cabin at night, respect the spirits that linger in the shadows. Listen closely to the whispers of the past. And remember, even the quietest cabin may hide secrets that never truly leave. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and may your journeys into the haunted forests be guided with caution and wonder.